Welcome to APD iConnect, create WSC SAN services, and when to exclude SAN services. It is important to remember that all current services on the consumer cost plan must be submitted on the SAN request. The WSC will indicate the adjustment needed or no change for each plan service, allowing for review of the entire consumer cost plan. Submitting a SAN for only the services that are being requested does not allow the consumer budget to be calculated for the entire consumer cost plan. If a WSC submits a SAN for only the services that are being requested, the SAN will not be processed and will be returned to the WSC. Also, if the WSC excludes a SAN service or services in error, the SAN will not be processed and will be returned to the WSC. The WSC will be able to locate the excluded service, check the checkbox for the excluded service, select Tools, Include Current Service, File, Copy Selected Service, adding the service to the SAN request, and resubmit. When to exclude current services has to meet the criteria, and when excluding services, the WSC does not change the service plan on the consumer cost plan. When a criteria for excluded services requires the WSC to exclude one service and total units under the other, the WSC will exclude one service from the SAN request and include the total units needed on the other service that is being submitted with the SAN request. Examples of criteria to exclude current services are different provider, same service, overlapping dates. Exclude one service from the SAN request and total units on the other service submitted with the SAN request. For example, different provider, same service, overlapping dates. The service plan is from July of 2020 to June of 2021. The service, LSD1, has two providers, both for 2,400 units. The SAN service plan will be from July 2020 to June 2021, but the provider doesn't matter for SAN purposes. So the current fiscal year units would be the 2,400 plus the 2,400 for each provider for a total of 4,800, and the annualized units would be 4,800. Additional criteria to exclude current services is different provider, same service, non-overlapping dates. The WSC will exclude one service from the SAN request and total the units on the other service that is submitted with the SAN request. For example, service plan number 1 for LSD3 begins July 2020 to October of 2020, provider ABC for 360 units. There is a different provider for July of 2021 to June of 2021. Same service, LSD3, for 720 units. The SAN service will have one service plan. Again, the provider doesn't matter for SAN purposes. The current fiscal year units would be a combination of the 360 units from the first provider and the 720 units from the second provider for a total of 1,080 units, and the annualized units would be 1,440. Other exclusion criteria: canceled services with a cost equals 0, whether there is a replacement service or not. Same provider, same service, non-overlapping dates, exclude one service from the SAN request, and total the units on the other service that is submitted with the SAN request. Same provider, same service, non-overlapping dates with the same ratios. The WSC will exclude one service from the SAN request and total the units on the other service that is submitted on the SAN request. Same provider, same service, non-overlapping dates, but with different ratios. The WSC will include both services with the SAN request. Same provider, same service, overlapping dates. This would never happen because it won't pass plan validation. To prepare the SAN services, the WSC will enter into APD iConnect in the WSC CDC role and access the consumer record. Once in the consumer record, click on the SAN tab and enter into the SAN that is being submitted. The SAN details are already populated and are in a draft status. To prepare the SAN services, the WSC will click on the SAN Services tab, and all of the current services that are included in the current consumer plan display. The WSC will indicate the adjustment needed or change for each plan service that is on the consumer cost plan. Remember, submitting a SAN for only the services that are being requested does not allow the consumer budget to be calculated for the entire consumer cost plan. So every service that is on the current plan that does not meet the criteria for exclusion must be included with the SAN request. If a WSC submits a SAN for only the services that are being requested, the SAN will not be processed and will be returned to the WSC. When excluding services, before File Copy Selected Services is chosen, the excluded services must be excluded at that time. If it is done after Copy Selected Services, the exclusion option is not going to be available. I'd like to demonstrate first how exclusion works. We have not copied the services for the SAN at this time. And say, for example, we want to exclude services. They meet the criteria and we want to exclude them. You place a check mark by each service that must be excluded. Go to Tools, Exclude Current Services. And you'll notice you get the message that the SAN service is excluded. And on the side of that service, instead of included, it says excluded, which means that service will not be copied over to submit with the SAN request. However, if the service was excluded in error, the WSC can check the services by placing a mark in the box, Tools, Include Current Services, and now those services are back and can be included in the SAN submission process. That is the same process that will happen if a service for SAN is excluded and the SAN is submitted. If at the time the state process owner determines that that service should have been included, the SAN will be returned to the WSC. The WSC will be able to check the box that was excluded, go to Tools, Include the SAN service, and resubmit the SAN. Certain criteria that allow a WSC to exclude a service from SAN submission. One of them is same service, different provider with overlapping dates. In this example, we've got LSD1 with provider 1 with the start date of July 1, 2020 and an end date of June 30, 2021. When you click into the service, you'll see it's 520 units. We also have LSD1 with a different provider from December 1st, 2020 to June 30, 2021. Overlapping dates, same provider, same service. Because the criteria has been met, the WSC can exclude one of these services from being submitted with the SAN and including the total number of units on the other service that is going to be submitted with the SAN. The second LSD1 service has 250 units per quarter. That's a total of 770 units that will need to be included in the LSD1 service that is being submitted with the SAN request. The WSC can exclude one service by placing a check in the box next to any one of those services because for SAN, providers don't matter. Go to Tools, Exclude Current Service, confirm that the service has been excluded. You also have where you can exclude a service when you have the same service with different providers where the dates don't overlap. In this instance, we've got LSD3 with provider 1 that starts on July 1st, 2020 through December 1st of 2020. And we've got LSD3 with a different provider that starts January the 1st, 2021 till the end of the fiscal year 6/30/2021. Again, the criteria for exclusion has been met. The WSC will exclude one service and include all of the units for both services under the LSD3 service that will be submitted with the SAN. So on one service, we have 360 units. And on the same service with a different provider, we've got an additional 360 units. So when LSD3 is submitted with the SAN request, it will be one of the services for a total of 720 units. The WSC will choose one of the services by placing a check mark next to the service, Tools, Exclude Current Service. Now, all of the services that can be included with the SAN can be copied, and the WSC can respond accordingly with how the SAN request for each service is recommended. To copy the selected services, the WSC will place a check mark next to all of the services that are included. File, Copy Selected Service. And now you'll see you have the current services and you have all of the services that were copied over with the WSC as the reviewer type. Now that all services have been copied, the WSC will open each SAN service record with the reviewer type WSC and modify accordingly. All services need to be addressed, even if no changes are being requested. The WSC in this demonstration, in their plan, they had 2 services for LSD1 and LSD3, which we excluded one of each. Now we must combine the units from both of the services into the one service that is being submitted with the SAN for review. For LSD1, in this service, the consumer has 250 units. The other service for LSD1 had 520 units. So for SAN purposes, the combined units will be 770 per quarter. And you'll notice that the max amount changed. The WSC must change the cost to equal the max amount. The total number of units for the fiscal year is 1,789. And you would enter any comments in the SAN comment area to ensure that the process owner, the reviewer, has all of the information they need about this particular service. Because we are seeking a reduction in LSD1 at 650 units per quarter, the annualized units are going to be 2,600 for the upcoming fiscal term. The SAN service status is pending. And the recommendation is reduce requests. File, save and close the SAN service. For LSD3, in this service, we have 360 units per. The service that was excluded also had 360 units per. So the units per combined is 720. The max amount is changed. The WSC will manually change the max amount, change the cost to equal the max amount. The total units needed for the current fiscal year is 1,428 units. And you would enter in comments. The annualized units will be 1,440 because we are asking for an increase in this service. The SAN service status is pending. And the recommendation is increase request. File, save and close the SAN detail. The WSC will continue to address each SAN service. Behavior analysis is also one of the services. The units per are 120 units per quarter. The total units needed for the current fiscal year will remain at 480 units. And you would enter in any comments. And our annualized units for the next fiscal year will be 480. We are not requesting a change in the behavioral service. The SAN service status is pending, and the recommendation is no change. File, save and close SAN detail. The WSC will continue to address all of the services with the reviewer type WSC. Our consumer has personal support services. The service that is going to be added to the consumer as a SAN request will be ResHab. Because we are asking for ResHab to be added, we are going to request that personal supports end, effective December the 1st. The WSC will change the date accordingly. And the system will adjust the number of units as well as the max amount. The WSC must manually change the max amount, must manually change the costs to match the max amount. The total number of units for the current fiscal year is 4,740, and you enter into comments. Annualized units, because we are requesting an end request, is 0. The SAN service status is pending, and the recommendation is to end the request. File, save and close the SAN detail. Support coordination. The units per for support coordination is 1 per month roundup. The total number of units is 12, and they are going to remain the same for the current fiscal year. As well as remain as 12 for the annualized units. The SAN service status is pending, and the recommendation is no change. File, save and close SAN service detail. The consumer also has supported living coaching. And again, because we are requesting ResHab, we are going to request that the supported living coaching service end effective December the 1st. The system will change the number of units as well as the max amount. The WSC wants to change the cost to equal the max amount. The total number of units for the remainder of the fiscal year is the same. and enter comments. Annualized units will be 0 because we are requesting to end the service. SAN service status is pending, and the recommendation is end request. File, save and close the SAN detail. Now that the WSC has addressed all of the WSC services under Reviewer Type WSC, the WSC will add any additional services to the SAN request by going to File and add a new SAN service. By entering the begin date and the end date, choosing the index sub-object code by clicking on the ellipsis, and completing the other fields. We are adding ResHab to the consumer services. ResHab is 1 unit per month, and in iConnect, it's month roundup. The provider ID, if known at the time the provider can be entered. If not, choose pending provider. You'll notice the total number of units for the rest of this fiscal year is 7. And enter into any comments. The annualized units for the next fiscal year would be 12. When adding a new SAN service, the SAN service status pre-populates as pending. There is no recommendation that the WSC will enter. It automatically pre-populates as new service. The WSC will file, save and close the SAN service detail. And now all SAN services, those that were Reviewer Type WSC, and any new services have been added to the SAN services, and the WSC can now continue the SAN process.